Beautiful people. Hope you all are thriving, not just surviving. We have yet a lot to talk about today. I'm going to be giving you all a big update when it comes to Epstein and what we currently know. There's going to be a lot more also happening today, so that will be interesting. So please make sure to send some likes as you're jumping in. I do have a hard cutoff in about, let me do math, 25 minutes? Yeah, 25 minutes or so. So anyway, I appreciate every single one of you. Y'all are awesome. Make sure to send some likes. Good morning, Akicha. How's it going? Hello. Hello. Do you all, I love how I say hello. I just think it's so iconic. Hello. Or hello. Anyway, good morning, everyone. So we are going to be doing a deeper dive into the current situation on Epstein. Now, I was talking about this quite a lot when it originally surfaced, though it kind of fell back because there were a lot of things, you know, like Donald Trump just being a dictator and like talking about being a dictator. Some people say they want a dictator. Some people they would say they want it. It's just like, oh my God. Anyway, but so Epstein kind of took like a back seat in that regard, though there are a lot more victims that are now actually speaking out about their experiences. And there's also congressional action that is happening in regards to disclosing the full files. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be bringing up the current actions in Congress and also hearing what some of these victims are saying. And I think it's important to hear and like see these people are brave coming forward, and they're also speaking stuff that is just so emotionally like real, and you can really connect with it. So anyway, y'all please make sure to send some likes. Let's officially jump in here. All right. So yesterday, NBC News did a big sit-down interview with 6 victims of Jeffrey Epstein and 3 family members of Virginia Giuffre, who has since passed away due to suicide because, well, I don't specifically know what the cited reason was, but Virginia Giuffre was known as a very prominent victim against Jeffrey Epstein and even sued Jeffrey Epstein. So they all sat down in an interview. In full honesty, I've not seen the full interview all the way through, though I watched a good chunk of it. So I don't know absolutely everything that was said during the interview, but I'm also going to be showing you the transcript of some of the things that these brave women said and family members. And it really just taps into so many other themes other than just stuff with Epstein, just about America in general, like the justice system in general, how there seems to always be this double standard that like if you're rich and you're powerful and you have money, wealth, and you're connected, that you can get away with anything. And it's so real connecting on that front. So anyway, I'm going to start with this, then we're going to talk about how people in Congress on both sides of the aisle, but mainly Democrats, but also led by Thomas Massie, are actually doing a discharge petition. And you're like, I don't even know what that is. A discharge petition means that you're circumventing going around the Speaker of the House when trying to vote on something on the House floor. So we're going to be diving into that. So anyway, let's officially start. Jeffrey Epstein survivors say that they're compiling their own client list of powerful associates. So yesterday in an interview with an anchor on NBC News, 6 victims and 3 family members of the now deceased Virginia Giuffre, or actually, I'm sorry, it's not Giuffre, it's Giuffre. I think I've been mispronouncing that this whole time. I apologize. Spoke about their experiences coming forward. And so we're going to dive right into that here. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein told NBC News yesterday, Tuesday, that they are taking matters into their own hands and will compile their own client list as frustration mounts over the Justice Department's failure to release the unredacted records from notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's network. Now, you all remember back on like July 1st, it was like a Sunday evening. I don't know if it was specifically the 1st, but it was like July 1st in the evening, the Department of Justice and the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, put out this memo basically saying, we're closing the investigation, there is no Epstein list. And they were thinking that it was like going to be done quietly, and people were like, what the fuck? Like, and so let me show you what that was. If you all remember back, I wish I didn't cover up the date here, because this was Axios's thing being like, yeah, we're concluding that there is no client list. And let me get to the actual specific part of the letter here. If you all remember, it says, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There's also no evidence found that Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Basically, that means that we didn't warrant, or we find no reason to dive into this further or to investigate people who have not yet been connected within this. Uncharged third parties, that means people like Donald Trump. So like, this was what they just revealed, and people, even in MAGAverse, were like, what? What? There's no way. Like, you had, where's the Epstein info the American people were promised? You handed us a notebook and promised more was on the way. You told us it existed, now you say it doesn't. So these are like conservative, far right-wing people. We were told more was coming. The answers were out there and they'd be provided. Incredible how utterly mismanaged this Epstein mess has been. And it didn't have to be. And so Robbie Starbuck was like, this new DOJ memo, admits there are countless victims of Epstein, but on video, no client list or evidence. So Epstein was trafficking these underage girls to nobody. And so they were like, obviously not falling for this. This was one of the biggest memes that went around. We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk, and then saying there is no Epstein list. This all going to Pam Bondi, when our current attorney general, who basically said that, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. It being the Epstein list. And so all of that being said, because of the shortcomings of the government, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, notably the 6 women, along with the family members of Virginia Giuffre, who is now since passed, have said, we're compiling our own list. We're not waiting on the government to act. They kind of talk about in this interview, and I'll fully show you here, they're saying, the government has failed us on this. They never explicitly said that, to be very clear. But they're like, the government has just been complicit in their actions, and that's why we're feeling the need to come forward. Like, this doesn't have to be a thing if the government would just do its job. And you can really sense in the tone of these victims that they're just like, what the fuck? And I would be too, honestly. So let me get to that here. And part of this is because the government did release some Epstein files, but guess what? They were redacted. So you had a lot of names of people a part of the network, not even just victims, but perpetrators that had the names redacted. And for those people who are like, what do you mean by redacted? That's when you basically take like a big Sharpie or like, a marker or something like that, and you cross it out, and then you make it so that you can't read it. It's basically taking a tiny piece of black construction paper and putting it over text. Like, that's what redacting means. And then you release that file. It's like, well, I don't know what that sentence says because you can't see it. And this is a way that certain governments try to like protect their citizenry by not informing them of everything. And in theory, that can be cool, and I understand it in that sense. But also, when it comes to cases like this, it's important to call a spade, all right? Like, you don't want to just hide that information because it might be inconvenient for some perpetrator, So these people were like, we're compiling our own list because we can't trust the government to actually do their jobs. And this also comes on the back of the fact that a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA is FOIA. I know it sounds kind of weird, but a FOIA is like a Freedom of Information Act request. They did that so that they could see these files, and they later learned that Trump's name was redacted from these Epstein files that ended up being released. Anyway, that all being said, let's get to part of this interview here. So these are the 6 women coming forward and 3 family members of Virginia Giuffre. The list is full of lefty celebrities and politicians. Y'all. You know what's so funny? Even if that were the case, great, hold them accountable. I will say that, like, I'm not going to be surprised. I don't know what they define as a lefty politician, but you're not going to see me cry if Bill Clinton gets locked up, okay? Sorry, I'm not going to shed a tear. But you know what's so funny is people that are Democrats or left-leaning, they are like, okay, great, hold them accountable. It's the right that fully cannot process that their dear leader, Donald Trump, their God that they worship with their 19 shirts and 6 hats and 15-yard signs and, 7 flags, and they bought his cologne. Y'all cannot process that he is also very much likely to be implicated in this. So don't be like pointing, oh, lefties can't deal with it. No, you're the one that's projecting your insecurity onto everyone else because you cannot handle information that goes against what you want to believe. Facts are facts. Y'all make sure to like the stream if you're enjoying it. So this is the interview between the 6 Epstein victims along with the 3 family members of Virginia Giuffre. In all honesty, have not seen the full interview all the way through, though I also want to show you the transcript of some of these moments because it's important to highlight them. Jeffrey Epstein accusers urged Trump to release all the case files, unredacted, and rule out a Ghislaine Maxwell pardon. 6 women, along with the relatives of prominent Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, are speaking out and sharing their stories here. And this is Jess Michaels. Epstein was a master manipulator, she said, who alleged that the late financier graped her in 1991 when she was a 22-year-old professional dancer. She said, quote, that was a strategy that was honed. That was a strategy that no young woman, no teenage girl had a chance. Not a chance against these psychopathic skills. And, that's very, very fair. When you're younger and there are people that are older and they have power and dominance in that sense over you, you feel powerless, like you can't really get out of it. It's not like you've been given agency or given a choice. NBC News brought together a panel of women who included accusers and 3 relatives of Virginia Giuffre, a prominent Epstein and Maxwell accuser who died by suicide in April of last year, I believe. This is the panel. I'll highlight all of them later on. And this is, oh gosh, I forget her full name. I think it's down there. Yeah. Jenna Lisa Jones. She said a lot of these powerful people think that they're in the clear, and they're probably still doing it now. And that's also really important. If you don't come forward about your story when it comes to a perpetrator, it's very likely that they're just going to move on to the next person. They're going to move on to the next person and do the same kind of crap. And this comes not even just within sexual harassment or sexual violence. This just comes within anything. If you let someone off the hook for their bad actions and you say, oh, well, it's just guys being guys, or it's just them being, obnoxious. It's like, yeah, sure. You might feel like, okay, well, doesn't matter as much to you, but then it's going to go and happen to someone else. What this does, and one other woman, a part of this interview was like, the fact that if we don't prosecute these kinds of people, what kind of example is that setting? We're promoting a culture of silence where victims are not heard in that sense. Now, of course, you have to vet the stories that people, talk about. You have to vet and say like, okay, well, is this is this victim founded in evidence, blah, 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 blah. You know, you have to vet the claims. That's what the courts are for. But you can't just ignore it in that sense either. So, anyway, but a lot of these powerful people think that they're in the clear, and they're probably still doing it now. There are very many adults around Epstein's properties that may not have participated, but very clearly knew what was going on. And I'll get to more elements of the interview here in a minute. This is another one, last name Avis, that was coming forward. Not everybody's getting justice, and that is not right. You know, the everyday person is out there. That's me, and we're the victims. This is another one. Her name is Liz Stein. We haven't been protected, and we haven't been informed. And this is Virginia Giuffre, who's no longer with us. She died by suicide. I think it was last year. She was she was part of a lawsuit with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know if it was also with Donald Trump. I'd have to double check that, but you can see here. Now, let me actually go to part of the transcript that was a part of the interview here. And I took these are all legitimate, these are all true screenshots from my own phone. I do all of my live streams and everything, and all of the backgrounds, everything, I do all of it over my phone, just letting you know. So this here, I was preparing for the live stream this morning. I was watching the interview, and this is the transcript that comes along with it with the YouTube preset stuff. And the interviewer was like, and I have to ask in the same context of, you know, in this moment, this idea of a potential pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell. Again, Ghislaine Maxwell being the woman that was with Jeffrey Epstein in this horrible sex trafficking ring. And how would you feel if she were to be pardoned, given your sister's comments about Maxwell? And the relative of Virginia Giuffre said, you know, I think it's the biggest slap in the face for us as a family and these girls and anybody that's been impacted by her. You know, I don't think that 20 years is enough. And the interviewer was like, you referring to her sentence? And he goes, yeah. She's like, yeah, I don't think that 20 years is even enough. Now, I'm not an expert on the law in that, in the sense of like what a normal conviction is for someone that commits a crime at the level of Ghislaine Maxwell, but I think 20 years is too little. That's just my view. I would say that would be something like more for life, you know? If my sister were here with her sisters right now, she wouldn't be happy about it. We are not happy about it. And the fact that even Donald Trump, our president, God, is even entertaining doing a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell is just disgusting. It's disgusting. Under President Donald Trump, he sent the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, to go and interview Ghislaine Maxwell in exchange for transferring her to a lesser security prison that has way better like conditions and stuff like that, making kind of more of like making it way more comfortable in that sense. Sorry, but like, I don't understand why anyone is just ignoring that as like a, oh yeah, well that's not nefarious at all. Think about the intentions behind all of this here. Like, the fact that Donald Trump is trying to cover for, oh, well, I'm going to transfer you, you know, if you just leave my name out of all of your discussions in regards to this investigation. It's so clear. Think about it. If it were Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Barack Obama, would you be like, yeah, that seems pretty awfully convenient. So there are these Trumpers that just discard any sort of information because it doesn't fit their pre-existing worldview based on what they want to believe, not what is true. But we'll get to that more in a minute. Also, after the fact, when the transcripts came out, I didn't think that she added anything to the narrative that would get her that move. And so They continue talking about that there. Let me do a show of hands. Who would like to see President Trump definitively roll out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell? Everyone raised their hands. And so the interviewer was like, every single one of you. Every single one of you. And these are moments you can see if you're wanting to go and watch the actual interview. These are the transcript moments here. And one Epstein victim was like, yeah, I mean, just toying with the idea is an insult. And so then it continues onward here. I think it was Jess Michaels that said this. She said, yeah, and it's not just one side or the other. This is a nonpartisan issue. Everyone is asking. Even some in his base are asking. And like, if there's anything that can really rally the people in America to really get on the same page, it's prosecuting people that are clearly guilty of a crime. And that includes, you know, of course, Jeffrey Epstein, who, you know, is now not here, but Ghislaine Maxwell. But also, in my view, that includes President Trump. He has done so many things. Like, why is it that there is a double standard when it comes to justice in this country? The double standard is not for, you know, oh, these woke people somehow getting out of... No. It is for the rich, powerful billionaires, millionaires, wealthy and well-connected that can do whatever they want without repercussions. Meanwhile, the working class or the working poor or everyone else that isn't advantaged in some way, that is literally breaking their back in order to just be a cog in the machine for a rich person's gain, we're the ones that are always the victims of it. And then as soon as we try to get the same justice, oh, well, nope, we get spit on in that sense. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. And so it's important that we as Americans all be on the same page, because it's more about the wealthy, well-connected billionaire class, the elites that constantly have this double standard of justice where they can do whatever they want and get away with it because they're so wealthy and well-connected. And that spans both sides of the political spectrum. Now, in my view, there's one side that's clearly, quote unquote, more guilty than the other ones. I don't have to say which one that is, but also, we as Americans, we all deserve so much better from our representatives. And so it starts with actually holding people truly accountable. No one is above the law. And yes, for MAGA, if you're listening, that includes President Trump. So when there are federal judges that say, hey, you can't do that, that actually violates the law, that violates our checks and balances and separation of powers, don't get your little panties in a wad, okay? Calm down. We can figure this out together. Anyway. Continuing on here, did anybody see or hear the president? And this is also important. I wanted to mention this as part of the live stream this morning. The anchor of NBC asked the victim, said, hey, did anybody see or hear the president, Donald Trump, himself doing anything inappropriate as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein? And in complete transparency, the victim said no. And then they asked, or former President Bill Clinton, and they said no. So it's important to just also point that out there. They're not even talking about Trump or Clinton within this interview. And I don't remember who this woman is. I think it was oh gosh, what was her face? Oh yeah, this was Jenna Lisa Jones. I really appreciated her take here when it came to this. Where was this? Hold on. Where was it? Yeah. She said, it's heartbreaking to go to the news all the time and see all of this. It's heartbreaking to have friends send you news articles, be like, hey, oh, this again. I thought this was over for you. She's just like, I don't want to have to be here. And then it's 5 years later, 6 years later, and here we are again, because they're still not doing something from when they started the investigation years and years prior to that. Had they done their job in the first place, none of us would have to be sitting here on camera today. And that was like, yeah, 100%. If we had actually just pushed forward with this investigation, then we wouldn't have to be worrying about this. Now, her feeling is so real because she's like, look, the government has kind of just, been like twiddling their thumbs, being like, ooh, I hope this goes away. And not even just the government, but just like high profile people that have been controlling government officials. And she's like, had they done their job in the first place, we wouldn't have to be going through this. And this is why they said, we're compiling our own list. The government said that, the Epstein list is sitting on, Pam Bondi said, oh, it's sitting on my desk right now to review. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, they release a memo at like dark hours in the evening on a Sunday being like, actually, there is no client list. And, there's no client list. And we're not going to continue this investigation any further. So like when the government has clearly failed its people, they're going to take matters into their own hands in that sense. So I'm calling on the government. Do what you have to do. This is your job. If/when I ever run for Congress, the idea is to be a group by and for the people, not by and for the billionaires or the wealthy people or the well-connected, for the people. And so sometimes that means that instead of spending all your time listening to AIPAC lobbyists or the wealthy CEO of some big company, you got to listen to the people, the constituents within your own district. Not even sometimes, all the time. That means, hey, spending less time with wealthy Washington insider consultants that basically are just paid to promote a certain wealthy person's interest and actually connect with real people and truly represent them. And so the whole culture needs to change in Washington, and it's needed to for the longest time. But that's me going on my soapbox here. But also the interviewer asked, who else would like to see the DOJ, Department of Justice, reopen this investigation? And everyone raised their hands. And this is Jones, I think was her name, says this is Just Michaels, I'm sorry. She said, that's where I think the American people are with us. They're like, okay, if they're not investigating this case with 100,000 files in it, how is anyone ever going to get justice for their cases? And I think that was so valid. Also, if you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to like the stream. I work super, super hard to do these live streams. It means a lot when you all support me. I am going to have to go here in a few minutes, but I wanted to finish this up here. And so how is any mom ever going to see justice for their child? Ever. And then you had Liz Stein, who was another victim, says, and my fear is that we're promoting a culture of silence, and how far back are we going to have to take ourselves if we don't give this attention scrutiny that it deserves, scrutiny and attention that it deserves, regardless of who is involved? Was a crime. And that is so important because, look, it isn't even about the identity or partisanship of the person that has done any sort of crime. It's about the fact that if you do the crime, you do the time. If you break the law, then you deserve to be prosecuted for that. If the people that were a part of this Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking ring, doesn't matter the political affiliation. Just prosecute them. Hold them accountable. For all these MAGA people that are like, oh, you lefties aren't going to be able to deal when it's all these lefties that are on the list. We're not going to then, okay. We said we wanted, we wanted everyone to be held accountable. But it's important to note that the right wing, y'all are not going to be able to accept. I welcome you to prove me wrong. You cannot accept the fact that it's also people on your side of the aisle. In fact, it looks like there might be even more on your side of the aisle. But this doesn't need to be a dividing issue. We're all unified behind exposing these kinds of these cretins. But it's so worth pointing out the people who are attempting to be divisive on this issue, you're only feeding into the cover-up that comes along with it. So when MAGA is constantly fear-mongering that it's only certain people on one side of the political aisle that's on this list, you're feeding into the cover-up. And that does an injustice to all the victims. Doesn't matter who it is, prosecute them. Yes, you're not going to see me bat an eye as a Democrat, be like, oh no, poor Bill Clinton. Lock him up. Hold him accountable. If there's evidence to show that he has done what he has done, then great. Hold him accountable. I would hope that there would be the same commitment to equal application of law on the other side of the aisle. But I don't think that there is from some members of the Trump cult. Sorry, I don't think there is. It's like heads I win, tails you lose for some of those people. And also continuing on here, yeah, most of us parents, we want to see change for our children. You know, we want real legislation that doesn't have any loopholes, that leaves out, or that creates loopholes for, you know, abusers to then not be held accountable. Now, I'm obviously over my time and I need to get to work, but I am going to mention this one other small thing real quick. There is an effort going on in Congress right now to actually push for the release of all Epstein files. It's important to note that the Epstein files spans multiple different branches. It includes the judicial branch and the executive branch. And it's also part of the job of Congress to push for the release of those files. Oh, there was a super chat. In honor of speaking out love and justice. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Crystal, Gigi, what is it, KH? You're awesome. I appreciate you. You're awesome. Thanks for the super chat. And it's important to note that Congress is actually pushing forward for the release of all these files, doing something called a discharge petition. So most of the time, whenever a piece of legislation goes through the House, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to double check, for every single piece of legislation, it has to go through the Speaker of the House. They have to go through the procedural motion to bring it to the floor. Well, the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is like, yeah, I don't want to bring this bill to the floor to release all the Epstein files. Gee, why? What are you covering up? Are you acting on the behest of Donald Trump? So you have people like Thomas Massie who credit, you know, on this issue and other issues, he's really not great. But Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, is like, yeah, so he's collaborating with Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California, who at one point scrolled into one of my TikTok lives and actually was like, you know, chatting in the chat section, which was actually really cool. But Ro Khanna, and they're like, yeah, we're filing a discharge petition to actually push for the release of all of these files. And what is so notable is there are, you know, I'll actually show you what it is in a second, but the House Oversight Committee released a whole bunch of Epstein files recently, but guess what? Literally the majority of that material was already public information. So you have the Republicans trying to say like, oh, look, we released the files. It's like, the things that you released were already information that was out there. So like, stop trying to brand yourself as being an arbiter of truth when you're really just complicit in the cover-up. But anyway, on Tuesday's All In with MSNBC, Massie appeared with Representative Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, whom he introduced a resolution calling on the Department of Justice to release all the files with minimal redactions or no redactions. And this is the discharge petition that was actually put forward here. And this is from the clerk of the court. If you ever want to see votes or like signatures on legislation, the clerk of the court is always the best place to go to for, and also congress.gov, where you can see what your lawmakers vote or do not vote on. I know it's super, super small print. These are all the signatures. Literally everyone on here, except for a couple notable people, are all Democratic, but I want to point out the Republicans. So you have, of course, Thomas Massie, but what's really interesting is the Republicans that have signed on to this tend to be the Republican women. Now, you know me, personally, not a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, or Lauren Boebert, or Nancy Mace. But it's interesting to note that the Republicans that have signed on have been women. Now, just because I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to speak on behalf of them, but that is also worth pointing out, that it's the women that have tended to be a part of that. So it really leads to more speculation on like, why aren't the Republican men sticking up for the victims? It's the Republican women that are speaking out. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that, but I wanted to point that out at least. So they're going through this discharge petition to then release these Epstein files. If they get enough signatures, they can circumvent the Speaker of the House in order to vote on this resolution, I should say, to release all the Epstein files. Meaning going around the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, in order to get it done. So we shall see where that ends up going. I think there's going to be some action today on the Hill in regards to this situation, but I'm way past my cutoff and I need to get to work. But I appreciate every single one of you. I do have to skedaddle. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here. I mean, I could not do this live without my moderators. Seriously, I love you all so much. Akicha, you know, you're amazing. Ilisa, Cherie, Kate. I could not do any of this without you all. I really couldn't. Ilisa, you're incredible. Jenny, Joanna Tech, Cantisa. I appreciate all of you so much. Definitely go and check out my latest video that I released. MAGA tries to argue with Grok, the AI chatbot. That's a fun video. So I appreciate all of you. I cannot do this without my moderators. I love all of you so much. I will be live tomorrow, of course, at the same time. Probably talking about, well, I don't know what I'll be talking about yet, but we'll get there. Anyway, I love all of you so much. Just remember that you are beautiful. And Ellie. I don't know if I mentioned Ellie. Shout out to Ellie if she's in here. Love you. Just remember that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are valid, you are strong, and you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!